All right, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about the kind of AI war that's going on basically globally and how I think it's kind of related to the Iran war as of late. Now, this might just be my schizo take on it, but it seems like this is an energy war for the most part, and we know that AI is taking up a lot of energy, especially within governments that are using it for their own purposes, to either use it for military or business or other population control type of applications, not just your basic chat GPT search or anything like that, but real high level, governmental applications and stuff. So we can see that, although the 5 or 10% or whatever that is going to affect the United States might be a lot more than we assume when you're taking into account the necessity of these countries to compete in the AI realm. So I'm going to just check out some information. But first, I wanted to look at this because I was checking out Margaret Thatcher, since she was like a woman leader and stuff. And we can see here that there's always this kind of like deep state involvement. I know people don't want to hear about the deep state or whatever, but you can see from this short passage from Wikipedia on her that she was in this thing called the Shadow Cabinet. And in 1967, the United States Embassy brought her over in this International Visitor Leadership Program, which sounds very similar to like the Global Leaders Program that the World Bank has, or the whatever you call it, the freaking international globalist thing. The World Economic Forum, that's what's called. Okay. The World Economic Forum Global Leadership Program, right? It's very similar to that, where she was brought over by the U.S. Embassy. Then she visited various U.S. cities and political figures and institutions such as the International Monetary Fund. And even though she wasn't even on this shadow cabinet yet, the embassy described her as a possible future prime minister. And then she met with people such as Paul Samuelson, Walt Rostow, Pierre Paul Schweitzer, and Nelson Rockefeller. Then after that happened, then she was promoted to the shadow cabinet as transport spokeswoman. So we can see that this deep state, it's not a clear-cut thing. They're not saying, hey, we're doing this deep state stuff. It's basically like what I would describe as unofficial channels to power, where it's not like people in the public elected her. She was pre-selected by these groups, shadow groups, and involved in international, basically boards that select these people to be the rulers of your country, right? So that's just kind of like a side note there. So when we get into the whole AI thing, right? First thing that we kind of notice is that Elon Musk first tried to start ChatGPT, right? He was one of the original investors, him and Peter Thiel, right? So him and Peter Thiel work together, right? We know that. Right. And then we can see that Peter Thiel also was one of the co-creators of PayPal with Elon Musk. So Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, they work together all the time. They're even known as being part of the PayPal mafia. Right. And then PayPal was sold to eBay. So we can see that unlike the previous generation of kind of like CEO moguls like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and other people that maintained control of the company for the entire time, Elon Musk and these other kind of investor class people have no problem creating a company that will basically become in control of the economy or military or some sector, and then just leaving it to a board of CEOs that will direct it. Because what people don't seem to understand is that there's one direction that we're going in, and these groups, these subgroups, are just competing for who's going to be in control of the mechanisms of power. It's not that they're not all in agreement that we're doing AI and we're doing robotics and we're gonna basically phase out the human population as much as possible and phase out, people's ability to meaningfully participate in politics and economics, right? Through all this AI stuff, right? But they don't need to be in control of the company. They don't even need to be, once it's in effect and they're in this class that's above the effects of the things that they're doing in society, it doesn't really matter if they're in control of the company or not, right? So we can see that it's kind of like a pattern that happens where they found these companies, right? We say, who created Palantir, right? Oh no, wait, that's who owned that. Wait, who created Palantir? Well, anyway, we can see that again. Peter Thiel is the co-founder and chairman, co-founder of PayPal and chairman of Palantir. So Peter Thiel is everywhere, right? But the thing is that there's basically what I would call, there's the ChatGPT team and then there's the Grok team, right? So Grok was created by Elon Musk, right? And then if you type in Grok and Palantir, then you actually get something showing that, yes, in fact, Grok is working with Palantir, and it's this is the actual Palantir.com website, and you can see that Palantir uses Grok. Grok is one of the acceptable applications that that Palantir, the company, uses, right? But if you type in Chat GPT and Palantir, right, it doesn't come up, right? So the Chat GPT team doesn't work with the Palantir team. They're two separate teams, right? They're two separate investment groups, you can say, or interest groups that are doing the exact same thing. They're both trying to automate and AI everything on the planet, but under their system, right? Because if they own the code, it's like what's his name said, the guy that used to own Twitter, where he's on Joe Rogan, where he said code is law, right? So if you own the code, you own the law, right? So we can see here, what is stakeholder capitalism? We've gone through this before. We can just see right here. State-based armed conflict, societal polarization, misinformation and disinformation. We've heard all this stuff before. The ESG metrics, right? So then this is from the World Economic Forum, written by Klaus Schwab. So we can see that ChatGPT is more in the globalist, you could say like a kind of like global communist party type of thing, but they're doing the same thing as Palantir, right? They just want to AI everything, right? And so we can see more that, yeah, the Microsoft CEO is all about the stakeholder capitalism. That's what this article is about. Stakeholder capitalism. Shareholders want stakeholder capitalism, right? So they're in the stakeholder capitalism thing, right? Which is basically like communism. Then we have Palantir, which is more of a libertarian capitalist type of thing. They're working with JP Morgan, the banks, right? Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, right? And then we can see here that if you refuse to work with the government, then you get banned, right? As an AI company, right? We can see here February 24th, I guess that's 2025 or it could be 2026. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth demands Anthropic allow unrestricted use of its AI models. Then on February 26th, Anthropic refuses to comply with the demand, stating concerns over military applications. February 27th, President Trump orders federal agencies to stop using Anthropic's products. Then on March 4th, Anthropic reopens negotiations with the Pentagon amid ongoing military operations. Then on March 9th, Anthropic files a lawsuit against the federal government claiming irreparable harm from the designation. Now, the designation is that it's a risk to the supply chain because basically they won't allow the military unrestricted use of their AI models in order to kill people, right? So again, right, if you type in Grok, stakeholder capitalism, you don't get anything. And we got a Rand Corporation. Put that in the description. So you can see that if you search for stakeholder capitalism in ChatGPT, you get hits because they're working together. And if you search for Palantir or for Grok and stakeholder capitalism, you don't get anything, right? But if you search for Grok and Palantir, then you get something, right? But if you search for ChatGPT and Palantir, you get nothing, right? So they're two separate entities, right? The World Economic Forum and ChatGPT and the kind of stakeholder capitalism left wing side of things. And then you've got the more right wing libertarian big business thing going with Palantir, ChatGPT, and Grok, right? So these two groups are kind of competing against each other, right? So you can see that now if you don't work with the government, then you don't get in on the $500 billion investment from the government, from taxpayers, right? So if you don't play ball with the government, then you don't get the money from the government, right? As we can see here, yes, Elon Musk's Starlink satellites are being used by the military, particularly by the US Navy, for communications and administrative tasks. They have also been utilized in conflict zones such as Ukraine to maintain internet connectivity during warfare. So the US military, especially the Navy, has integrated Starlink technology into its operation. All right. The service has been essential for military operations in Ukraine, humanitarian efforts, and civilian communication. U.S. Department of Defense covers Starlink expenses for Ukraine, highlighting its strategic importance. Right. So the conclusion is that Elon Musk's Starlink plays a significant role in military operations for both the U.S. and Ukraine. So a lot of this stuff is probably them, it sounds sick, but probably them just testing out to see how their new equipment works. Now, it doesn't tell us what Trump specifically is invested in, but we can see that his kids are investing in AI, you know, and this, just the fact that this $500 billion, you can't, if you're an AI company, you can't get any of that unless you allow the government unrestricted use of your AI models to kill people. That's basically the catch to get in on this $500 billion, right? And then that's going to be used in Iran. Now, this is what's really interesting, right? This article here, I put it in the description. It's claiming that although rarely in the headlines for its technological prowess, Iran is a global leader in the development of artificial intelligence. A recent index compiled by Nature ranks Iran as the 13th strongest AI producing country in the world, placing it above larger, richer countries such as Brazil and Russia. Although already punching above its weight, the Iranian government aspires to more. In 2022, the state-affiliated ICT Research Institute proposed an expansive strategy to position Iran in the top 10 of AI-producing countries within 10 years. The proposal even includes a massive $8 billion investment on the part of the government. Right. And then Ayatollah Khamenei stated that Iran must become part of the top 10 countries in the world of AI. Right? So they're talking about using it for military, and one of the main things that they were using it for, the Iranian government often underscores AI's role in countering sanctions and securing national interests. Right? So they're using AI to figure out how to get around sanctions. And probably our government doesn't like that. Right? And we can see in this article, also in the description, Iran recognizes the vital role of artificial intelligence will play in its future economic viability, regional influence, and national security, and has begun to implement a top-down effort to achieve regional technological competitiveness. Since the supreme leader issued a directive in 2021, Iran has endeavored to develop a national strategy and oversight mechanism for AI and foster a technological ecosystem to drive domestic research and development. However, two key factors, Tehran's global economic isolation and its deeply entrenched system of government control and oversight, have almost certainly hindered Iran's national AI development. In 2024, as Tehran's support for its proxies Hamas and Hezbollah against Israel embroiled Iran in unprecedented regional conflicts and ongoing cyber warfare, new insights emerged about how Iran has implemented AI technologies in its national security apparatus. Iran has used AI to bolster its capabilities in four main areas: cyber attacks, influence operations. See, they're using AI for influence operations. So they are using, everybody's using these bot farms and probably fake AI people, fake AI influencers to push their propaganda. Military and intelligence systems, and domestic repression. What? Domestic repression? These priorities will continue to propel Iran's development and implementation of AI, almost certainly imposing an increasing threat to Iran's Western and regional adversaries. In cyberspace, AI will likely augment Iran's threat actors, spear phishing, and social engineering tradecraft, while AI's implementation in Iran's drone and missile arsenal is likely to pose the greatest physical threat from emerging technology. So basically, they're using the AI in the drones And so there's kind of like a two-front war going on, it seems. Like they want to get the energy from the oil, but they probably also want to hinder their AI development because the AI cyber war is one of the biggest things going on right now. And when people miss that, right? People kind of miss that point, right? Because Palantir is definitely just a military type of thing, right? It's a military. Where, where, The company was established to develop software for data integration and analytics, particularly for government and intelligence agencies. Right? So it's for the government, it's for intelligence agencies. That was the whole point of Palantir, right? And then you can say it's schizo, but it's like, it's pretty clear to me, right? That Palantir works with Grok. Grok is owned by Elon Musk. Elon Musk's satellites are being used by the military, right? If you don't allow the military to use your AI, then you don't get the part of the $500 billion government money, right? So whether it's ChatGPT team or whether it's the Grok team, the Grok Palantir team, or the World Economic Forum, it's clear. They're going to use AI to control everybody on the planet. And whoever's AI completely dominates the entire system, they will be the owners of it, and then they will be the owners of the new global system. Now, whether that global system is going to be the ChatGPT World Economic Forum version, or it's going to be the Grok Palantir big business version, that's kind of dependent probably a lot on how they get the energy, like through the Iran war, and how they can convince Americans and people in their different countries to divert energy that they would be better off using to lower cost for food and housing and all the type of goods and services that people use into AI and building AI data centers so that the government can dominate everybody using AI and using the military connected to AI, right? And so demolishing Iran is probably going to set back their AI development just as much as it's going to set back all of the other development of all the other stuff, right? In fact, let's check that. Yep. See, I mean, it sounds schizo, but look, Israel and U.S. bomb data centers in Tehran following Iran's drone strike. I'm assuming, look, we got it right here. Yes, the U.S. and Israel have conducted airstrikes on Iranian data centers, reportedly targeting facilities used by the IRGC. This action followed drone strikes on Amazon data centers in Bahrain and the UAE, which were attributed to Iran. I know, I'm going schizo here. Yes, the U.S. has conducted airstrikes on Iranian data centers. These strikes were part of a military response following attacks on Amazon Web Services. Right, and we know Amazon Web Services works with the government, and in fact, Jeff Bezos's web services are the main data centers that the CIA uses. We gotta look that up now too. So Sam Schizo. See, AWS, Cloud for U.S. Intelligence Community. Amazon is integrating with the CIA and NSA, right? So we can talk about oil all we want, right? But they need the oil to power the AI. And they're more worried probably about the AI because I'm sure Iran is using the AI to target facilities, and they're also using it for the same reasons that we're using it, to control society, create artificial, or I guess you'd say manufacture political consent. That would be a good way to say it, and to monitor and repress their own population, right? Where it says, I mean, that's crazy where it says that. Right. So you can say sounds crazy and schizo at first, but when you actually put all the pieces together, we've got two teams here in the US or in the West, basically, right? You got your Chat GPT, globalist, communist type of thing, and then you've got your Grok, big business, right-wing libertarian type of thing going on. But either way you look at it, from the level of a normal person like us, it's just they're going to take over society with AI. Doesn't matter, Does it really matter if a right-wing group takes over society with AI or a left-wing group, right? And personally, I think that's why a lot of content creators aren't talking about this, because they have to hedge their bets, right? Because, for instance, if you're like a right-wing content creator, you're more likely to have kind of like a deference or preference for the Grok, Palantir, libertarian system. And they're less likely to ban you if you're like, say, Candace Owens or something like that, right? You're better off with the Palantir version because they're not going to ban you because you're right wing. Whereas if the Chat GPT group gets in control, the left wing, World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, they might ban her, right? So it's like the people that are involved in kind of like the media and stuff, I think they kind of know what's going on here too. And notice nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about Palantir working with ChatGPT, with Grok and with the government, right? And Elon Musk is working with the government, clearly. And if you don't work with the government, then they basically call you a national security risk. And then not only do you lose reputation for being called a national security risk, so now nobody with a government contract can work with you, but you also lose out on the $500 billion taxpayer-funded investment into your company. And probably other investors won't want to invest with you either, because now you're considered a security risk by the highest level of government, right? So it all just feeds into, you develop your AI, and then your AI gets subsumed by the government for the government purposes. And then you get to be kind of like a side investor and just sit back, and while the government uses your AI to kill people and repress the population, and you just get a little cut of the shares of it, right? Or you can do the stakeholder version, which is the same thing, right? Just the Chat GPT version, where now you can't use curse words, and it's like a Disney movie. Everybody's the same rate, all races are the same, and everybody, you can't, that's the only difference, right? It's like they're still going to be in complete control of your life and using super advanced AI to basically manufacture consent, manipulate your mind, manipulate the economy. But one side, you can say fuck and print up boobs on your AI thing, and the other one, you basically have to bow down to black lesbians, right? But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. They still are going to be in complete control to the point where it's just going to, basically, they were going to be manipulating everything. So you can see why they would want to attack Iran other than for the oil, right? And we can see that, yes, they did bomb the data centers, right? So that's my schizo take on the whole thing so far. Thanks for watching the video. If you did, have a good day and peace.